age 7, your relationship with money was already damaged. And if you've ever wondered why saving money feels painful, why you unconsciously sabotage your own financial success, or why there's an invisible ceiling on what you believe you deserve to earn, what I'm about to share will finally give you answers. Think about the last time you checked your bank balance. That feeling that washed over you, whether it was anxiety, guilt, disappointment, or even that subtle sense of unworthiness. That feeling was programmed into you decades ago by people who probably had no idea what they were doing. In the next hour, you'll understand exactly why you make the financial decisions you do. You'll see how your money identity was formed, why it's so resistant to change, and most importantly, how to finally rewrite that story from the ground up. But first, I need to tell you about a 7-year-old girl sitting at her grandmother's kitchen table. Whether you're fully focused right now, or simply letting this play in the background while you work, rest, or drift to sleep, your subconscious mind is listening. The gentle frequencies woven into this audio are designed to quietly reprogram your relationship with money and abundance. So there's no need to concentrate. Just relax. Let the words and frequencies do their work. Your mind will absorb what it needs. The 7-year-old girl is named Sarah, and she's watching her grandmother count out exact change at the grocery store. Every coin matters. Her grandmother's fingers shake slightly as she searches through her purse, other customers waiting behind them. Sarah notices the way her grandmother's shoulders tense, the apologetic smile she gives the cashier. "We can't afford that, sweetheart," her grandmother whispers when Sarah asks for a candy bar. But it's not just the words. It's the way she says them. The shame in her voice. The way she looks away. In that moment, Sarah's brain is making connections she won't understand for decades. Money equals stress. Wanting things is selfish. There's never enough. Good people don't ask for more. This is how money identity begins. Not through conscious teaching, but through emotional imprinting. Through the 1,000 tiny moments when we absorb not just what people say about money, but how they feel about it. Your money identity was formed the same way. Through observation, through osmosis, through the emotional climate around financial conversations in your earliest years. And here's what makes this so powerful. It happened before your critical thinking skills developed, before you could question or analyze what you were absorbing. The neuroscientist Dr. Bruce Lipton calls this period from birth to age 7 the programming phase. During these years, our brains operate primarily in theta wave states, the same brainwave pattern associated with hypnosis. We're essentially walking around in a trance, downloading everything we observe directly into our subconscious programming. This is why your money behaviors often feel automatic. Why you can know intellectually that you deserve more, but still feel guilty when you spend on yourself. Why you can understand compound interest perfectly, but still struggle to save consistently. You're not fighting your conscious mind. You're fighting decades-old programming that runs much deeper. But here's what most people don't realize about this programming. It's not permanent. The same neuroplasticity that allowed these patterns to form in the first place can be harnessed to rewrite them. But it requires more than just positive thinking or surface-level behavior changes. It requires identity-level transformation. The architecture of money identity. To understand how to change your money identity, we first need to understand how it's constructed. Think of your money identity as a building with 3 distinct levels, each one supporting the others. The foundation level is your core beliefs about money itself. These are the deep, often unconscious assumptions that shape everything else. Beliefs like money is the root of all evil, or rich people are greedy, or there's never enough to go around. These foundational beliefs were typically installed during your earliest years, often without you even realizing it. The second level consists of your beliefs about yourself in relation to money. This is where thoughts like "I'm not good with money," or "people like me don't get rich," or "I don't deserve financial success" lie. These self-referential beliefs act as a kind of thermostat, keeping your financial reality within the bounds of what feels familiar and safe. The third level is your behavioral patterns, the actual things you do with money. But here's what's crucial to understand. These behaviors are simply the external expression of the deeper beliefs below them. This is why behavior modification alone rarely creates lasting change. You might force yourself to save for a few months, but if your deeper identity says, "I'm not the kind of person who has money," you'll unconsciously find ways to sabotage that progress. Dr. James Clear, in his research on habit formation, discovered that the most sustainable changes happen when we shift our identity first, then align our behaviors to match that new identity. Instead of saying, "I want to save money," we start by saying, "I am someone who values financial security." Instead of "I should invest," we begin with "I am someone who makes my money work for me." But shifting identity isn't just about changing self-talk. It requires understanding the psychological mechanisms that keep the old identity in place. One of the most powerful of these mechanisms is something psychologists call cognitive consistency. Our minds have a deep need for our beliefs, emotions, and behaviors to align. When they don't, we experience psychological discomfort, what Leon Festinger called cognitive dissonance. Here's how this plays out with money. Let's say you've always identified as someone who isn't good with money. This identity feels familiar, even if it's not serving you. Now imagine you start making some positive financial changes. You begin saving regularly, maybe even investing a little. What happens next is fascinating. Your mind starts looking for evidence that contradicts these new behaviors. You make one impulsive purchase and think, "See? I knew I wasn't really good with this." You have one bad investment and conclude, "I should just stick to what I know." This isn't weakness or lack of willpower. It's your brain trying to maintain consistency with your established identity. The solution isn't to fight this tendency, but to work with it by consciously updating the identity first. But there's another layer to this that goes even deeper. Your money identity doesn't exist in isolation. It's connected to your identity around worthiness, security, power, and belonging. These connections were formed through your early experiences, and they create what we might call your emotional money map. Consider Sarah from our earlier story. Her experience at the grocery store didn't just teach her that money was scarce. It taught her that wanting things caused other people discomfort, that asking for more made her a burden, that good people sacrifice their desires for others' comfort. Decades later, as an adult, Sarah might find herself consistently undercharging for her services, not because she doesn't know her worth intellectually, but because asking for more still activates that old emotional programming. Her money identity is entangled with her identity as a good person. This is why purely rational approaches to money management often fail. We're not just dealing with numbers and logic. We're dealing with emotional programming that connects money to our deepest needs for safety, love, and belonging. The psychologist Dr. Brad Klontz has identified several common money scripts, unconscious beliefs about money that drive behavior. Scripts like money avoidance, money is bad or corrupting; money worship, money will solve all problems; money status, my worth equals my net worth; and money vigilance, money should be saved, not spent. Most people operate from a combination of these scripts, often contradictory ones. You might simultaneously believe that money is important for security, money vigilance, and that wanting money makes you shallow, money avoidance. These internal contradictions create constant psychological tension and inconsistent behaviors. But here's what's hopeful about understanding these patterns. Once you can see them clearly, you can begin to change them. Not through force or willpower, but through conscious, systematic reprogramming. The neuroscience of change. The human brain is remarkably adaptable, but it's also remarkably efficient. Once it establishes a pattern that works, even if works just means keeps us alive, it prefers to stick with that pattern rather than expend energy creating new ones. This is why your money habits feel so automatic. They're literally running on autopilot, managed by the part of your brain that handles routine behaviors. The neuroscientist Dr. N. Grabiel discovered that habits are stored in a brain region called the basal ganglia, which operates largely below conscious awareness. When you encounter a financial situation, your basal ganglia quickly scans for familiar patterns. If it finds one that matches previous experiences, it activates the associated response before your conscious mind even gets involved. This is why you might find yourself making impulsive purchases or avoiding investment decisions even when you intellectually know better. But here's where it gets interesting. The same neural mechanisms that created these automatic patterns can be used to create new ones. The key is understanding how to work with your brain's natural learning processes rather than against them. Dr. Rick Hansen, a neuropsychologist who studies how the brain changes, explains that neurons that fire together wire together. Every time you repeat a thought pattern or behavior, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with that pattern. Conversely, when you stop using certain pathways, they gradually weaken. This means that changing your money identity isn't about destroying old patterns. It's about building new ones that eventually become stronger than the old ones. It's like creating a new path through a forest. At first, the old path is clear and easy to follow, while the new path is barely visible. But with consistent use, the new path becomes the easier route, and the old path gradually disappears under new growth. The challenge is that during this transition period, your brain will keep trying to default to the old patterns. This is where most people give up, interpreting this resistance as evidence that change isn't possible for them. But this resistance is actually a normal part of the process. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who studies the intersection of neuroscience and personal change, describes this as crossing the river of change. On one side is your familiar but limiting identity. On the other side is your desired new identity. The river in between is the period of discomfort when you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Most people turn back when they reach this river because the discomfort feels like evidence they're going in the wrong direction. But understanding that this discomfort is temporary, and actually a sign that change is happening, makes it much easier to persist through it. There are specific techniques that can make this transition smoother. One of the most powerful is what neuroscientists call mental rehearsal. When you repeatedly imagine yourself thinking, feeling, and acting from your new money identity, you're literally building the neural pathways associated with that identity. This isn't just visualization or positive thinking. It's based on the discovery that the brain doesn't distinguish clearly between imagined and actual experiences. When you mentally rehearse being someone who makes confident financial decisions, your brain begins to wire itself as if you actually are that person. The key is making these mental rehearsals as vivid and detailed as possible. Instead of just thinking, "I want to be better with money," you imagine specific scenarios. How would someone with a healthy money identity respond to an unexpected expense? How would they feel when making an investment? What would their internal dialogue sound like? Another crucial element is what psychologists call state-dependent learning. The emotional state you're in when you're doing this mental rehearsal affects how deeply the new patterns get encoded. This is why the relaxed, receptive state you're in right now, whether you're actively listening or letting this play in the background, is so powerful for creating change. Your brainwaves are naturally shifting into the theta range, the same range where your original money programming was installed. In this state, your subconscious mind is more open to new information and new patterns. The old critical filters that might normally resist change are temporarily relaxed. This is also why repetition is so important. Your original money programming wasn't installed through a single experience. It was reinforced through hundreds or thousands of small experiences over many years. Changing it requires similar repetition, but fortunately, conscious repetition can work much faster than unconscious absorption. Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon who became fascinated with psychology, observed that it typically took his patients about 21 days to adjust to their new appearance after surgery. This led him to propose that it takes 21 days to form a new habit. While modern research suggests the timeline is more variable, anywhere from 18 to 254 days depending on the complexity of the change, the principle remains valid. Consistent repetition over time creates lasting neural change. But there's another element that can accelerate this process: emotional intensity. The stronger the emotion associated with a new pattern, the more quickly it gets encoded in your neural networks. This is why peak experiences, moments of strong positive emotion, can sometimes create instant and lasting change. You can create these peak experiences artificially by combining your mental rehearsal with strong positive emotions. When you imagine yourself successfully managing money from your new identity, don't just think about it. Feel the pride, the confidence, the sense of security and freedom that comes with it. Your brain will begin to associate these positive emotions with your new money identity, making it more attractive than the old patterns. Instead of change feeling like deprivation or struggle, it begins to feel like moving towards something deeply rewarding. The practice of identity shifting. Understanding the theory of change is one thing. Actually implementing it is another. The gap between knowing and doing is where most transformation attempts fail. But there are specific practices that can bridge this gap effectively. The first practice is what I call identity archaeology. Before you can build a new money identity, you need to understand the old one clearly. This isn't about judgment or blame. It's about developing awareness of the patterns that are currently running your financial life. Start by observing your automatic responses to money situations. When you check your bank balance, what emotions arise? When you think about making a large purchase, what internal dialogue starts playing? When someone mentions investing or building wealth, what immediate thoughts or feelings come up? These automatic responses are clues to your deeper programming. They reveal the beliefs and emotions that were installed during your formative years. The goal isn't to judge these responses, but simply to notice them with curiosity. Dr. Daniel Siegel, a neuropsychiatrist who studies mindfulness, uses the phrase "name it to tame it." When you can observe and name your automatic patterns without getting caught up in them, you begin to create space between your programmed responses and your conscious choices. For example, instead of just feeling anxious about money, you might notice, "I'm having that familiar anxiety response about checking my account balance." This is the old programming that says looking at money is scary. This simple act of observation begins to weaken the automatic pattern's hold over you. The second practice is identity bridging. Rather than trying to leap from your current money identity to your desired one all at once, you create intermediate identities that feel more believable and achievable. If you currently see yourself as someone who's terrible with money, jumping directly to someone who's wealthy and financially savvy might feel too far-fetched for your subconscious to accept. But moving to someone who's learning about money, or someone who's beginning to make better financial choices, feels much more realistic. These bridge identities serve as stepping stones. Each one is close enough to your current identity to feel achievable, but different enough to create movement in the desired direction. As you successfully embody each bridge identity, the next one becomes more accessible. The third practice involves what psychologists call implementation intentions. Instead of vague goals like "I want to be better with money," you create specific if-then plans that connect situations with new identity-based responses. For example, if I feel the urge to make an impulsive purchase, then I will pause and ask myself, what would someone with a healthy money identity do in this situation? Or if I start feeling anxious about money, then I will take 3 deep breaths and remind myself that I am someone who is learning to have a peaceful relationship with finances. These implementation intentions work because they pre-decide your response to common triggers. Instead of having to rely on willpower in the moment, you've already established a new pattern that aligns with your desired identity. The fourth practice is evidence collection. Your brain is constantly looking for evidence to confirm your existing beliefs about yourself. If you believe you're bad with money, you'll notice every financial mistake while overlooking evidence of good financial decisions. To shift this pattern, you begin deliberately collecting evidence of your new identity. Keep a simple log of every financial decision that aligns with your desired money identity, no matter how small. Choosing to pack lunch instead of buying it, comparing prices before making a purchase, reading one article about investing. These small pieces of evidence might seem insignificant, but they're actually building a new narrative about who you are. Your brain begins to see a pattern. I am someone who makes thoughtful financial choices. Over time, this new narrative becomes stronger than the old one. The fifth practice is environmental design. Your environment is constantly sending you messages about what's normal and possible. If your environment supports old money patterns, it will be much harder to establish new ones. This might mean organizing your physical space to support better financial habits, setting up automatic transfers to make saving effortless, or removing apps that make impulse spending too easy. It might mean changing your information diet, following financial educators instead of lifestyle influencers, or reading books about money psychology instead of just entertainment. But environmental design also includes the people you spend time with. The psychologist Dr. Nicholas Christakis discovered that behaviors spread through social networks like viruses. If you're surrounded by people with unhealthy money habits, those habits will feel normal and acceptable. If you're around people with healthy financial practices, those practices become your new normal. This doesn't mean you need to abandon old friends, but it might mean seeking out new communities that support your desired money identity. This could be online forums, local investment clubs, or even just one friend who shares your commitment to financial growth. The sixth practice is somatic integration. Your money identity isn't just stored in your thoughts, it's stored in your body. Different financial situations create different physical sensations. Anxiety might show up as tension in your shoulders. Guilt might manifest as a knot in your stomach. Shame might feel like a heaviness in your chest. Learning to notice and work with these physical sensations is crucial for lasting change. When you feel the old patterns activating in your body, you can use breath work, progressive muscle relaxation, or simple movement to shift your physiology. As your body relaxes, your mind becomes more open to new possibilities. The seventh and perhaps most important practice is compassionate persistence. Change is rarely linear. You'll have days when the old patterns feel stronger than ever. You'll make mistakes. You'll sometimes forget to use your new tools. This is not evidence that the process isn't working. It's evidence that you're human. The key is to meet these setbacks with curiosity rather than criticism. What triggered the old pattern? What can you learn from this experience? How can you adjust your approach going forward? Self-compassion isn't just nice to have. It's neurologically necessary for change. When you criticize yourself for setbacks, you activate your brain's threat detection system, which makes it much harder to learn and adapt. When you respond with kindness and curiosity, you keep your brain in a learning state where new patterns can continue to develop. The ripple effects of identity change. When you begin to shift your money identity, something interesting happens. The change doesn't stay contained to just your financial life. It begins to ripple out into every other area of your experience. This happens because your money identity is connected to deeper themes of worthiness, power, security, and self-expression. As these core themes shift, they affect everything else that touches them. People often report that as they develop a healthier relationship with money, they also become more confident in their career. They start asking for raises, pursuing promotions, or even launching their own businesses. This isn't coincidence. It's the natural result of an expanded sense of what they deserve and what's possible for them. Others notice changes in their relationships. As they become more comfortable with their own worth, they stop accepting treatment that doesn't reflect that worth. They set better boundaries. They attract partners and friends who support their growth, rather than keeping them small. There are also changes in how they relate to their own desires and dreams. Many people have spent so long suppressing what they want, because wanting felt dangerous or selfish, that they've lost touch with their authentic desires. As their money identity heals, they begin to reconnect with dreams they had abandoned. Dr. Gay Hendricks, who studies what he calls upper limit problems, observed that many people have an unconscious limit on how much success, happiness, and abundance they believe they're allowed to have. When they start to exceed this limit, they unconsciously sabotage themselves to return to familiar territory. But as your money identity expands, so does your tolerance for success and abundance in all forms. You become comfortable with receiving compliments, accepting help, and allowing good things to flow into your life without immediately looking for the catch. This expansion often happens gradually, in waves. You'll have periods of growth, followed by periods of integration. During the integration phases, it might feel like nothing is happening, but actually your nervous system is adjusting to new levels of abundance and possibility. One of the most profound changes people report is a shift in their relationship with time. When you're operating from financial scarcity, time often feels scarce too. You're constantly rushing, trying to do more with less, feeling behind and pressured. But as your money identity heals, you begin to experience what the Greeks called kairos, qualitative time rather than just quantitative time. You start making decisions based on what feels aligned and sustainable rather than what feels urgent. You give yourself permission to rest, to learn, to grow at a natural pace. This shift in time perception also affects your decision-making. Instead of making choices based on immediate financial pressure, you begin to think in longer time horizons. You start making investments in education, in relationships, in experiences that might not pay off immediately, but that align with your deeper values and long-term vision. Another common ripple effect is increased creativity and innovation. When you're constantly worried about money, a significant portion of your mental energy is tied up in survival concerns. As your relationship with money becomes more peaceful, that energy becomes available for higher-level thinking. People often find themselves coming up with new ideas for their work, developing creative solutions to old problems, or pursuing artistic and intellectual interests they had neglected. This isn't just because they have more money, it's because they have more mental and emotional bandwidth. There's also often a shift in how people relate to giving and generosity. When operating from scarcity, giving can feel threatening, like there won't be enough left for you. But as your money identity expands, giving becomes a natural expression of abundance consciousness. This doesn't necessarily mean giving more money, though that might happen too. It might mean being more generous with your time, your attention, your knowledge, or your emotional support. You begin to operate from the understanding that there's enough for everyone, and that giving and receiving are part of the same flow. Perhaps most importantly, there's often a deepening sense of personal agency and empowerment. When you're trapped in old money patterns, it's easy to feel like a victim of circumstances, like financial success is something that happens to other people, but not to you. But as you consciously reshape your money identity, you experience firsthand that change is possible. You realize that you're not at the mercy of your programming or your circumstances. You have the power to consciously create your experience. This sense of empowerment then extends to other areas where you might have felt stuck. If you can change your relationship with money, what else might be possible? If you can overcome decades of financial programming, what other limitations might be more flexible than you thought? Dr. Martin Seligman's research on learned helplessness showed that when people experience repeated situations where they have no control, they often generalize that helplessness to situations where they actually do have power. The reverse is also true. When you experience success in creating change in one area, it increases your confidence in your ability to create change in other areas. This is why working on your money identity can be such a powerful catalyst for overall life transformation. Money touches so many aspects of human experience that healing your relationship with it inevitably affects everything else. But there's one more ripple effect that's particularly profound: the impact on future generations. Your money programming didn't originate with you. It was passed down from previous generations who were doing their best with their own programming. As you heal these patterns, you stop passing them on to others. If you have children, they'll absorb your new relationship with money just as powerfully as they would have absorbed the old one. They'll learn that money can be discussed calmly, that financial planning is normal and manageable, that abundance is possible and sustainable. Even if you don't have children, your healing affects the collective. Every person who develops a healthier relationship with money makes it easier for others to do the same. You become living proof that change is possible, and that permission spreads to everyone around you. Integration and sustainable change. As we near the end of our exploration together, it's important to understand that the work of reshaping your money identity isn't something you complete once and then forget about. It's an ongoing practice of conscious choice and gentle course correction. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't plant seeds once and then abandon them. You water them regularly, provide appropriate nutrients, remove weeds that might compete for resources, and adjust your care based on changing seasons and conditions. Your new money identity requires similar, ongoing attention. Not because it's fragile or difficult to maintain, but because conscious growth is always more sustainable than unconscious drift. This doesn't mean you need to think about money constantly or turn financial planning into a full-time obsession. It means developing what we might call gentle awareness, a background consciousness of your financial patterns that allows you to notice when old programming tries to reassert itself. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who pioneered the use of mindfulness in medical settings, describes this as paying attention to what's happening while it's happening. When you notice the early signs of old money patterns, the familiar anxiety, the automatic thoughts, the impulse to avoid or overspend, you can gently redirect yourself back to your new identity. This redirection doesn't need to be dramatic or forceful. Often, it's as simple as taking a conscious breath and asking yourself, how would someone with a healthy money identity handle this situation? The answer that comes up will usually be wiser and more aligned than your automatic response. One of the most important aspects of sustainable change is learning to celebrate small wins. Your brain learns through positive reinforcement, and acknowledging progress, no matter how minor it might seem, strengthens the neural pathways associated with your new identity. This might mean celebrating the fact that you checked your bank balance without anxiety, or that you had a calm conversation about money with your partner, or that you made a financial decision based on your values rather than your fears. These moments might seem insignificant, but they're actually the building blocks of lasting transformation. It's also important to expect and normalize occasional setbacks. Change isn't linear, and there will be times when old patterns feel stronger than new ones. This doesn't mean you're failing or that the process isn't working. It means you're human, and humans learn through repetition and practice. When setbacks happen, the most helpful response is curiosity rather than criticism. What triggered the old pattern? What was different about this situation? What can you learn that will help you handle similar situations more effectively in the future? This investigative approach turns setbacks into learning opportunities rather than evidence of failure. It also keeps your brain in a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, which is crucial for continued development. Another key element of sustainable change is regular review and adjustment. Just as your financial situation will evolve over time, your money identity can continue to evolve as well. What serves you in your 20s might need updating in your 40s. What works when you're building wealth might need modification when you're managing wealth. This doesn't mean your core identity needs to change, but rather that it can become more nuanced and sophisticated. You might develop new aspects of your money identity that weren't relevant before, or refine existing aspects to match your changing circumstances. Many people find it helpful to do a periodic review, perhaps quarterly or annual, where they reflect on their financial patterns and identity. What's working well? What could be improved? What new challenges or opportunities are emerging that might require identity adjustments? This review process keeps your money identity current and relevant, rather than allowing it to become outdated or disconnected from your actual life. It's also worth noting that sustainable change often happens in layers. You might address one aspect of your money identity, perhaps your relationship with earning, and feel like you've made significant progress. Then later, you might discover deeper layers related to spending, or investing, or giving that are ready for attention. This layered approach is natural and healthy. It allows you to integrate changes thoroughly before moving on to the next level of growth. Trying to change everything at once often leads to overwhelm and abandonment of the process. Trust that your psyche will reveal what's ready to be worked with when you're prepared to handle it. The fact that you're listening to this content suggests that some aspect of your money identity is ready for conscious attention. Finally, remember that the goal isn't perfection, it's conscious choice. A healthy money identity doesn't mean never making financial mistakes or never feeling any anxiety about money. It means being aware of your patterns, having tools for working with them, and making choices that align with your deeper values and long-term well-being. As you continue this journey, be patient with yourself. Be curious about your patterns. Be willing to experiment and adjust. And most importantly, be open to the possibility that your relationship with money can continue to evolve in ways that support not just your financial goals, but your overall growth as a human being. The seeds of change have been planted through our time together. Whether you were actively listening or allowing this to work on your subconscious, your mind has been absorbing new possibilities. Trust that these seeds will continue to grow and develop in the days and weeks ahead, often in ways that surprise you. Your money identity is not fixed. It was learned, and it can be relearned. The patterns that have shaped your financial life until now were created by a younger version of you who was doing their best with the information and resources available at the time. Now you have new information, new resources, new possibilities, and most importantly, the conscious awareness that change is not only possible, but already beginning. The relationship with money that you've always wanted isn't just a fantasy. It's a very real possibility that becomes more accessible each time you choose to act from your desired identity rather than your old programming. And as you continue to make these choices, Day by day, decision by decision, you'll find that what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Not through force or struggle, but through the gentle, persistent power of conscious alignment with who you're becoming. Your new money identity is already emerging. Trust the process. Trust yourself. And know that every step you take in this direction makes the path easier for everyone who follows. The transformation is already underway. Allow it to unfold naturally, in its own time, in its own way. Your subconscious mind will continue to integrate these new patterns long after our conversation ends, weaving them into the fabric of your daily experience. Rest in the knowing that change is happening, even when you can't see it, especially when you can't see it. The most profound transformations often occur in the quiet spaces between thoughts, in the gentle moments of relaxation and receptivity. Like now, your money identity is being rewritten. Your relationship with abundance is being healed. Your capacity for financial peace and prosperity is being restored. Trust in this process. Trust in your own innate wisdom. Trust in the possibility that your financial future can be radically different from your financial past. The seeds are planted. The transformation has begun. And your new money identity is already taking root in the fertile ground of your consciousness.